Welcome to all our fans watching on Facebook Live. TORC, the Off-Road Championship, presented by AMSOIL. We're at the dirt track at Charlotte, outside the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And yes, we are live here in Charlotte after the races. Let's take a look back at what happened in the Turo Tire Pro Light race. On pole inside was Sean Morris. Outside pole was Luke Johnson. LJ14 drove around the outside and was out in front for much of this first half of the race.
Exactly. Luke Johnson had pretty much a commanding lead, but then made a couple small mistakes, and then Andrew Carlson worked his way up. Now, here was the fight for the championship, and here we see Travis Dinsmore making a mistake, and then all of a
spit it out, Ricky.
Yeah,
You've got Travis Dinsmore there getting ran over the back by Sean Morris, and then here comes somebody trying to work his way up through the field. It's Kyle Hart, the points leader.
And here we see Sean Morris going off, taking out a garden gnome. All kinds of mayhem going on out there, but it was a lot of bumping and banging because we had a lot of rain previous to the race.
Yes, it was a wet start to this race, but things cut in and worked in very nicely. Luke Johnson, he was in second, third place, but he got a big push about a couple of turns prior to this, and then all things he went from the front to the back really quickly.
And then he started to work his way back up. Two of the drivers getting into each other, Cam Reimers, and then it was Andrew Carlson out in front, and looked like he had the race underway, but it was the guy, Kyle Kleiman, this has been going for 4 in a row if he makes it here and makes a pass in the very last turn.
The last left-hander of the race, set up outside, went inside, and you're exactly right, Ricky Johnson, RJZ. Kyle Kleiman finishes on top of the box. His brother Cody finishes in third. So Kleiman, bookshelf up there, top and bottom, and it's good watching. We're live right now, and I'm watching live, and there it is with Kyle Kleiman. But it was a great race. We started off the night in a big way with that Pro Light race.
Well, with the rain, it got very sloppy. The guys went out at first, but it was so heavy and so sloppy that they had to pull them off, do a little bit of work to the track, and they did a great job. Everybody, Shane, Jeff Nordstrom, the whole crew here with TORC, and also worked together very closely with all the guys from Charlotte Motor Speedway. They put a great track underneath them. It was very sloppy, like as Kyle Hart said later on after he wrapped up that championship, that there was a lot of bumping and banging. It was hard to hang on to any one line. But Andrew Carlson said at the end of the race, it was a hard race to lead. When you're out in front, you're trying to protect your lead. When you're in second, you're using the guy's braking points, his acceleration points, and you know where he's making mistakes and where you're seeing those gains. So it was a very hard track to lead on tonight.
So you got it right. Kleiman wins the race, but Kyle Hart wins the war. He's the Pro Light champion. Let's talk about Pro 2-wheel drive. Again, we bump up that horsepower, and there he is. There's Kyle Hart racing in the Pro 2 here this weekend.
Yeah, our new Pro Light champion starts on the pole, and he gets out in front. Here we see Brad Lovell gets into the wall, and really no harm, no foul. But it was Kyle Hart. Almost the whole race was out in front and running very, very strong.
The one thing is Keegan Kincaid needed to finish at least just behind CJ Greaves if he had a chance to push that championship hunt all the way to the last race of the next round in Crandon. So when you see Hart, CJ, and then Keegan, it's okay for Keegan at this point, but CJ, when he makes the pass on Kyle Hart, then things get ugly for Keegan. He knows that he has to make a pass or he's going to lose the championship.
And here we see CJ going to the outside, using the cushion, getting a little bit better drive than Kyle Hart, and that puts him into the lead. And now Keegan Kincaid has to make something happen. He has to get in front of Kyle Hart to win this championship.
Kyle Hart was still looking for the win. You see on the inside, the 7 clips that tire, spins around. He goes from being a half a second behind to about 6 seconds behind in one turn, and that was his championship.
And that was the race. And here we see CJ Greaves out in front. Kyle Hart came back and tried to make a move, but it was this guy all year long, CJ Greaves.
7 wins in the last 8 races. A dominating performance by the Monster Energy kid. Where does he stop? I mean, he goes back to back to back here in Pro 2-wheel drive.
Well, and it's not just the 2-wheel drive. He's so strong and so dominant in the 4-wheel drive, but he's got a lot of respect from the drivers. We've heard Scott Douglas, who has been a nemesis or a frenemy, whatever you want to call it, to Johnny Greaves throughout their whole career, and he throws a lot of compliments towards CJ, saying this kid's got a lot of patience. He knows where to drive, and he's doing everything right. But he also, you got to throw a lot of gratitude, respect to Johnny Greaves, that's putting his son in the best vehicle out there. In fact, a lot of the Pro 4 drivers want to see some rule changes because those Toyotas are a little bit too dominant at this point. We need some parity in the Pro 4-wheel drive.
So you talk about Johnny and CJ. Let's take a look at them in the Pro 4-wheel drives. CJ had a chance to wrap up the championship if certain things happened, but good things didn't happen for CJ Greaves tonight.
Mike Jenkins back out in front, running very aggressive, and we saw a lot of bumping and banging between Scott Douglas and Ross Hook at the beginning. Then we see some bumping and banging going on with Johnny and Scott Douglas as well. But then here we see Mike Jenkins and Johnny Greaves, and that pretty much tore his front diff out. And here we see Johnny Greaves goes around because he's got no front wheel drive. And then he was able to finish the race later on and actually finish on the podium, but a lot of controversy.
So again, you're seeing Scott Douglas, but look at some of the faces in this. The Chad Horde sandwich, it looked like he had a chance to win this race, but something happened to his truck, and the left front just totally locks up.
And during the yellow, he was talking about something was clunking underneath, and I think something was going on with his underdrive, and then next thing you know, he was out of the race. But Scott Douglas was able to work his way back up, and then he said after the race, here we see Mark Kwame getting into Mike Jenkins, and then next thing you know, Brasho, the White Lightning is back up there in Dyson. Mark Kwame and him going for it. And Mark Kwame inside, outside, doing donuts. These guys were bumping and banging. It was an awesome race for second place.
Popcorn Sutton spinning donuts, but it was Scott Douglas with the victory. Brasho in second. And believe it or not, Johnny Greaves into third because Kwame actually got docked a position because it looked like he might have cut a little portion of the course. But Johnny really saves. He made up a lot of points on CJ. Both of them had mechanical difficulties, but now only a few points separate the two going to Crandon.
Yeah, and now you're going to have some other drivers. You got the West Coast guys coming in for the AMSOIL Cup. So you got a lot of people that could be the spoiler, and anything can happen. And if those guys finish 1-2, that CJ Greaves is still going to be the champion because there's only so many points. So CJ has to have some bad luck to get somebody in between them. But it's Crandon. It's the big house. You're wide open for so long. Temperatures are high. Energy runs high. And one small mistake.
And everyone wants to win.
Everyone wants to win there, and so then you got the AMSOIL Cup on the next day. The big Cup race on top of that. So with that being said, all the gloves are off right now. Anybody can win this race.
I agree with you, and you can watch it live on TORCseries.com September 3rd. That's it from Charlotte. We only have one more round to go, and we'll see you then.